Night doesn't fall here, it sinks, it bleeds into the earth. There's a forest, somewhere out there, that stands like a cathedral of rotting wood and forgotten folk tales. It's wrapped in a darkness so thick, even the moon seems to hesitate before touching it. According to local legends, people once carved symbols into the trees here. These weren't to mark territory, but to ward off the unknown. Over time, the symbols faded, washed away by rain and memory. But the stories never did. They spoke of a small, strange being, known by many names: the wink of the woods, the little harvester, the smiling borrower. But its oldest name, the one whispered in the most ancient tales, was Labubu, the creature that hides behind a mask of innocence, the presence that plays with shape and shadow, a being that was supposed to live only in old stories, never meant to cross into our world. Yet humans have a habit of recreating what fascinates them. We replicate myths, we sculpt legends, we turn old stories into objects we can hold in our hands. And sometimes, without realizing it, we invite the story back in. Labubu's return began when someone dreamed of a creature and turned that dream into a toy. In the far north, there's a forest that doesn't appear on any standard map. It's a place known only through oral tradition, passed down through generations. They call it Labubu Grove. For centuries, the region's folklore described children who would wander too far into these woods and never return. They didn't disappear in groups, but always one by one. The quiet ones, the curious ones. Their disappearances were symbolic, cautionary tales about the danger of straying too deep into the unknown. Hunters would come back from the grove with unsettling stories. They'd speak of strange markings, small, odd footprints circling the ancient trees, sharp, claw-like lines carved into the bark, and crude mud drawings of a creature with long ears and a smile that was just a little too wide. In the early 1700s, a traveling scholar journeyed to the region, determined to document these local legends. His writings described mythical beings that mimicked innocence to lure travelers, a common theme in cautionary tales of the era. But his final note, according to the story, was chilling. It read, "It smiles because the legend knows your name." Like many folklore collectors of his time, he eventually vanished from the historical record. There was no mystery, just the incomplete documentation of a bygone era. All that remained was the myth itself, waiting in the shadows of the grove. 3 centuries later, in the bustling city of Hong Kong, a young toy designer began having recurring nightmares. He saw a strange creature crawling from the shadows of his room, its shape familiar, yet wrong. No one knows if these dreams were caused by stress, exhaustion, or a hyperactive imagination. But one morning, he woke to find a sketch on his desk. A creature with long ears and that same, unnervingly wide smile. He wasn't sure if he'd drawn it in his sleep or if his mind was playing tricks on him. The more he dreamed, the more the creature appeared in his artwork. It filled his sketchbooks, its image becoming clearer, more defined. Finally, he gave in and sculpted a prototype. He named it Labubu. In old audio notes from that time, he joked that the creature guided his hand, describing the feeling as a creative trance that many artists experience when they're completely absorbed in their work. Shortly after the toy's commercial release, the designer quietly left the public eye for personal reasons. But a story began to circulate about a message found carved on his workshop wall, a symbolic phrase that took on a life of its own. The more you look at it, the more it looks back. A perfect metaphor for how art can stare back at us, reflecting our own thoughts and fears. As the Labubu toy gained popularity, early collectors started reporting eerie coincidences. Nothing truly dangerous, just atmospheric, spooky stories that fueled the growing legend. They'd talk about lights flickering in their homes whenever they were near the toy. Pets would sit and stare at the shelves where the figures were displayed, as if watching something unseen. Some swore that objects on their desks would shift slightly when their backs were turned. One collector, trying to document these oddities, captured footage of his toy seemingly turning its head on its own. He insisted it was real, but others watching the video pointed out it was most likely a camera glitch, a common digital artifact. Another claimed the toy had opened its eyes, but close analysis suggested it was just an optical illusion, a trick of light and shadow playing across the painted surface. This collector eventually moved out of his apartment, not because of the toy, but due to unrelated personal circumstances. Yet, in the retellings of his story, only one quote survived. "The thing felt like it was watching me." Again, the line was symbolic. This is how folklore works. It thrives on exaggeration, on transforming the mundane into the menacing. The modern myth of the toy had begun, but its roots ran deeper than anyone imagined. Let's go back to 1919. A folklore researcher named Eleanor Hartwell traveled to Northern Europe to document oral legends that were fading from memory. She ventured into a dense, remote forest, the very same region spoken of in the old tales. But as winter set in, she became lost during a severe storm. Official records state she likely succumbed to the harsh natural conditions. Years later, hikers discovered her notebook, preserved by the cold. The final pages were filled with her research on mythic small beings that appear in local tales across many different cultures. She wrote, "In legends, they mimic what they are not. They show themselves to those who feel unseen." Her very last entry was a folkloric warning, a metaphor that cautioned against becoming too attached to symbols and objects. It read, "The toy is only the invitation." Beside the notebook, half buried in the earth, was a small clay figure. It was crudely shaped, likely crafted by the local children or villagers centuries ago. But the form was unmistakable: long ears, a distinct body, and the faint tracing of a smile. It was a primitive Labubu, a physical reminder that myths never truly die. They just evolve, waiting to reappear in new forms. As the Labubu toy phenomenon spread online, fans started noticing a fun, spooky pattern. They called it the 307 effect. It seemed that toy-related videos would often glitch or buffer at precisely 3:07 a.m. People shared stories of their pets acting strangely, staring into dark corners of the room at 3:07. Collectibles would inexplicably fall from shelves at 3:07. For many, this was proof of something paranormal, but analysts offered more rational explanations. They pointed to coincidence, natural sleep-wake cycles, and the fact that many devices run automatic refresh rates in the middle of the night. Yet the legend grew, and fans soon connected it to a ritual timeline found in some obscure ancient tales. The timeline went like this: at 3 a.m., the world quiets. At 3:07 a.m., the small ones walk. At 3:13 a.m., the gate closes. The line between creepy fun and genuine belief was blurring. As one collector put it, perfectly capturing the psychological effect of it all. It wasn't the toy moving, it was my imagination filling the silence. The legend took another strange turn in 2022. A sound engineer who was recording the subtle movements and material sounds of various toys for a project captured something odd. While working with a Labubu figure, his highly sensitive equipment picked up what sounded like faint breathing noises. He assumed it was just environmental sound, amplified during the audio processing. But out of curiosity, he ran the audio through a spectrogram, a tool that visualizes sound frequencies. He claimed that within the visual noise of the recording, a pattern emerged, a whisper hidden in the static. He insisted it formed the words, "I am not a toy." It was far more likely a case of audiopareidolia, the brain's tendency to find meaningful patterns in random noise. It's like seeing faces in the clouds, but for your ears. Still, the story spread like wildfire, deepening the legend. The idea was planted. Maybe there was something inside the toy's shape, something more than just vinyl and paint, something waiting to be heard, from an ancient whispered name in a forgotten forest, to a recurring nightmare, to a physical object you can buy. The story of Labubu is a perfect example of how legends are born and reborn. We are told that night sinks, that it bleeds into the world, and that in the deepest darkness, you might find a creature with long ears and a smile too wide, a creature that began as a story and became something more. Have you ever heard of Group 13? They're a fictional folklore group, a bunch of modern-day myth chasers who document strange phenomena. In their archives, under the classification of mimetic entities, you'll find a file on Labubu. According to their research, Labubu isn't just a toy. It's a living story, a myth that survives through a pattern they call the 3 Ps. First, there's propagation. Think about it. How many times have you seen Labubu today? Online, in a store, on a friend's keychain? Every time you see it, every time someone mentions it, the story is repeated. The myth spreads like a ripple in a pond, getting wider and wider, touching more and more people. It's not about buying the toy, it's about the sheer repetition of its image. This constant exposure plants a seed in our collective subconscious. The more we see, the more the legend grows. Next comes proximity. This is where it gets personal. People bring Labubu into their homes. They place these little figures on shelves, on desks, beside their beds. They're not just decorations. According to Group 13's theory, they are anchors. Each figure acts as a small, physical symbol that keeps the story tethered to our world. It's one thing to see a picture online, but it's another to have that story physically present in your personal space, watching you while you work, while you sleep. The home is supposed to be a sanctuary, but with these symbols, it becomes a gallery for a waiting myth. Finally, the most powerful step, permission. This isn't a conscious choice. It happens subtly. When you find Labubu cute, when you feel a sense of joy or nostalgia looking at it, when you start collecting them, you're giving the myth permission to exist. Your belief, your emotional investment, is the key that unlocks the door. It invites the legend out of the realm of simple plastic and into the active theater of your imagination. You're not just buying a toy, you're becoming a custodian of its story, ensuring it doesn't fade away. There's a warning scribbled in the margins of the Group 13 file. It's a chilling piece of advice passed down through their ranks. Never stare too long into the eyes of a legend. It might stare back through your imagination. This isn't about physical danger. It's about the power of a story to take root in your mind. Once you let it in, once you give it that space, it becomes a part of you. The line between what's real and what's a story begins to blur. So, what does Labubu really want? The final chapter of the Group 13 file, titled Final Dark Revelation, is surprisingly simple. Labubu doesn't feed on fear or souls or anything so cliché. It doesn't need to. Labubu, the myth, grows through something far more common: attention. It thrives on our adoration, our storytelling, our human tendency to fall in love with small, harmless-looking icons. Every unboxing video, every collector's photo, every conversation about a rare edition, it's all fuel. The more popular the toy becomes, the larger and more potent the myth grows. Think of the millions of these little figures sitting quietly on shelves all around the world. Each one is a silent spectator in someone's life, but they aren't just plastic. In this narrative, each one is a reminder, a tiny monument to a story that refuses to die. Legends don't just vanish when people stop telling them. They wait. They find new forms, new faces, new ways to capture our attention. And every single toy, with its mischievous grin and pointy ears, is a small doorway, a portal into a much, much older tale. A tale about how ideas can take on a life of their own. And now, we come to the epilogue. If you are listening to this right now, just stop for a moment. Listen. Do you hear it? That quiet in your room. The stillness. The story of Labubu isn't a monster hiding under your bed. It's not a creature that goes bump in the night. It's a memory. a story that has followed you through this entire video, a myth that traveled through countless retellings, through digital screens and whispers to find its way to you. Let's be clear, Labubu is not dangerous. Labubu is not real in the way a chair or a table is real. Labubu is a story, a concept, a powerful reminder of how legends survive in the modern world. They adapt, they find new hosts, and now, because you've heard this tale, because you've walked through its shadows and entertained its possibilities, the myth has found a new home. It has found you. So tonight, if you happen to wake up and see the clock read 03:07, don't be afraid. There's no need to panic or look for something in the dark, because if you open your eyes, you might just see a small, smiling shape. But it won't be standing beside your bed. It'll be waiting right where it's been all along, inside your imagination. And if you listen closely enough, you might hear it whisper, not with a voice, but with a thought that feels like your own. I am only a story, but stories live forever. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this little journey into the lore, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales from the shadows.